Welcome back, Wolfpack Villas here, and this is going to be your team building guide in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire for double battles. Now, double battles, they're kind of insane. Like, I really can't stress how insane it is to come up with a doubles team. That there are many more dynamics on the battlefield. I think that that's the first thing we have to talk about with doubles, is that your opponent's bringing 2 Pokemon, you're bringing 2 Pokemon. You have to react to any of your 4 opponent's moves attacking any of your 2 Pokemon twice. And then also you have to understand like the outplay and setup potential, and it's really a lot of its own dynamics. So I really hope I can do this guide some justice with the team building, because there's so many layers to it that I don't think I can cover it all in one video, but I hope I can at least improve your guys' skill and give you a broad understanding of at least doubles team building and hopefully double battles. So first off, the way I say it is that you can't really start off with a Pokemon and build your team around it. That you kind of have to flowchart this in a way that, you know, are you going to do this, yes or no? And then you react differently on how you want to build your team. And first off, you should wonder if you're going to do any kind of field status. And by that, I mean, are you going to do Trick Room? Are you going to do Weather? If you're going to do Trick Room or Weather, it's kind of like, those are their own separate guides. And I have reviewed these guides in the past. That the idea is, like, say you're going to do Trick Room. Well, there's specific Pokemon that work under Trick Room teams really well, like very slow Pokemon. Pokemon like Dusclops, Pokemon like Slowbro, and then there's Pokemon that can also set the Trick Room, Audino, and even to a degree you can use Pokemon like Talonflame since it's a priority Pokemon in Trick Room as well, and the support comes out from there. If you're going to be running Weather, you know, you have to understand what the weather does. That if it's rain, it boosts water type moves by 50%, and there's also abilities like Swift Swim that apply really well in it, Rain Dish. Things like that can work out really well in rain teams. And on the other end, you also have sun teams. Sunny Day, Pokemon with Chlorophyll are very good to have it. And then you also need the Pokemon that sets the field status. Generally, there's going to be an ability like Drizzle or Drought that will actually set these for you. And then you can even have Pokemon using that. And those are their own dynamics from there. There's also Hail and Sand teams. And these also have their own abilities that work really well with it, like Sand Veil, Snow Cloak. And that's kind of the first thing. Like, if you want to run a team like that, awesome. If not, now you have to look into other ideas that pretty much you're going to bring out 2 Pokemon and you either want them to work really well together or you want them to kind of support each other. That one of the big things is that people will bring Pokemon with Prankster or Pokemon like Meowstic, because these Pokemon are really, really solid. That if we look at, you know, Meowstic's summary, it does things like Light Screen, Quick Guard, Fake Out, Thunder Wave. These things apply status before your opponent even moves, and you can use that to your advantage. You're going to lead with Fake Out, that way you can ensure your setup. Or you're going to use Quick Guard to try to cancel out their setup. Or you're going to use Thunder Wave to slow them down and give you more advantage. And it's kind of like trying to figure out the most efficient way to plant 2 advantages on your opponent and then make sure they don't get as much advantage back. Pokemon like Greninja can also do these dual roles with moves like Mat Block. That Mat Block is going to prevent that move from going through on the first time, but then you have to make sure you can set it up from there and then prevent yourself from being faked out and whatnot. That pretty much some of the most common things you're going to see are Light Screen, Reflect, Safeguard from the Pranksters, and you're also going to see a lot of Fake Out. Because Fake Out is trying to ensure at least it becomes a one-on-one turn for that first turn, and that's where your setup applies. Or you also can try to figure out your own setup that, you know, using Tailwind is going to improve your speed. So now you're going to be able to take slower Pokemon, make them faster to overrun your opponent. Or you can play this slower status game that you're going to still want to set up some kind of tankiness, some kind of disruption. And that's really how it goes. That now you have to decide what you're going to do. It's like, am I doing Weather? Yes or no? Am I going to be disruptive, supportive, or am I going to be more all out? Am I really going to try to just go and become like super offensive? Like with super offensive, you'll see people open like Talonflame Kangaskhan. That now you have 2 threats on the field. Are you going to try to double focus one threat, or are you going to try to handle both threats at the same time? You have to make your opponent play reactively with super aggro teams like that. But at the same time, if you open a support like Meowstic and Mega Kangaskhan, well, am I going to knock out the support Pokemon? Is that support Pokemon going to try to disrupt me as Mega Kangaskhan runs over me? Or what? And then you can also open like 2 super tanky Pokemon like Rotom and Ferrothorn. It's like, what am I going to do against a Rotom and Ferrothorn? I'm not going to be able to knock them out, any of them out, even with the double focus fire, unless you have like the super effective moves and stuff. And then they're going to be able to do some really nasty things to you, like Will-O-Wisp your main threat, Leech Seed, and start to set up from there. And that's kind of like, are you going to play that speed game, or are you going to play the more reserved tanky game? And then there's Pokemon that fit in that bracket from there. That, let's say if we want to play a speed game, you know, we can have Pokemon like Greninja, we can have Pokemon like Noivern, we can have other Pokemon, you know, it's like you're going to want a Mega that works with that. But at the same time, if you want to play a setup game, you know, getting Mega Salamence in there could be really strong. Getting any kind of other Mega Pokemon is going to set up. Or if you want to play a more direct aggro game, you can play with the Medicham. Also, a lot of really common threats. I'm going to do a video on separate threats, but you can see a lot of Mega Mawile, and legendaries are allowed in VGC. Not the big legendaries like Dialga, Kyurem, these Pokemon aren't going to be allowed, but the other trio legendaries, like you're going to see a lot of potential Thundurus, you're going to see a lot of Cresselia, mostly because these Pokemon are just really reliable. Cresselia's tanky, it can also provide a lot of support with Helping Hand, and it's also a threat that you have to deal with at some point in the game. So you're going to see a lot of Pokemon that are going to be trying to be supportive, and I think that that's kind of where you're going to see the breakdown, is that there's not really any kind of balance to what beats what. It's just kind of like the stronger team will try to win out, and sometimes, it's just getting that setup going, and other times it's just the way that the game plays out. Like Pokemon like Tornadus are also fairly strong. You can see really anything that if you have to understand what the meta is up to as well. Like with any Pokemon team building, it's not always going to be the same team over and over that you're going to want to bring. That if there's more physical Pokemon, if there's something that's more common at the moment, you're going to want to play around it to adapt. Like if there's a lot of really fast teams, I've seen Trick Room win several tournaments because not a lot of people are expecting the Trick Room. If they're setting up Tailwind, they're using these super fast Pokemon, you Trick Room them, well, that means that most of their strategy goes away, and now you're really in the driver's seat for a victory at that point, and things like that can work. Also, Weather. Weather has like a lot of really strange counterplay around it, that if you're bringing a rain team and your opponent is bringing a sunny day team, the Pokemon that comes on the field last will set its weather first. So you need to understand, like, am I going to lead with it? Are they not going to lead with it to try to counter it out by bringing it in? And there's just a ton of dynamics, like anything is possible. And then we also have to talk about combos. Like, this is before we've even tried to build up some kind of combos, that sure, Pokemon support each other, but then there are some Pokemon that directly combo with each other and pull off some really cool things. I've done a lot of Smeargle videos. Like, Smeargle can really help set up that Pokemon that, need an opportunity to set up. Belly Drum Slurpuff, for example, you need that fake out. You need that reflected light screen to keep it healthy. Other than that, Spinda Swap is one of my cooler ones that, contrary Spinda, using Skill Swap on a close combat Pokemon. Having a Pokemon that, wants a good ability. Skill Swap is its own little mini meta game that can play with that. And you can do all sorts of crazy things from there. Psych Up is kind of like its own mini meta game, that if a Pokemon doesn't have the stats, but you can do the proper support to get it working, that's how you can win some games. I made Dunsparce super OP by having minimized with Stockpile on Drifblim, putting that into a Pokemon, getting more stats, and then Dunsparce psyching it up. So you have to also do a lot of distraction as well in double battles. That are you going to bring some kind of small threat that your opponent is going to understand? They see Dunsparce. Well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go for that Dunsparce, or am I going to go for the Mega Kangaskhan? You have to kind of play those trickery when really the Dunsparce is something that they should be looking out for as well. Same with like Spinda Swap. Are you going to see Spinda as a threat without knowing that's going to Skill Swap? Or are you going to see Infernape as a threat? Infernape, a fast Pokemon, it can use Fake Out, it can go for huge close combat hits. Which one are you going to understand more? And then there are just Pokemon that are super reliable like Aegislash. You can just have a tanky front. Like, you see Aegislash on the field using Swords Dance. I need to go for that guy, but at the same time, there could be a Klefki, there could be any kind of Pokemon trying to support that Aegislash to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And that's really what double battles boil down to, is that, while I can't give any specific advice, you just have to kind of test it out. Like when I say in my single battles, don't be afraid to lose, doubles even more so, that you need to try out what Pokemon work really well with Fake Out, what Pokemon work really well with this Pokemon, If you think two Pokemon might synergize, just go for it. That it's like, okay, Togekiss, it can be using Scarf Air Slash. That means I have a chance of canceling out one of my opponent's turn. Should I be going for an attack on that other Pokemon? Should I be using that for my setup? Pokemon like Barbaracle, Pokemon that use Shell Smash, they have a lot of vulnerability, but if they get set up, they become really strong at the same time. And right now I've been having Hawlucha here. Well, I've also found out that some really crazy Pokemon can get set up really well. Hawlucha is actually a good supportive Pokemon, that it has moves like Quick Guard, it has moves like Encore. It can also do some good damage with High Jump Kick. You can use Fling for Fake Out potential. It has Skydrop. Skydrop is its own mechanic, that a fast Pokemon like Aerodactyl or Hawlucha with Skydrop essentially cancel out an opponent's turn for that turn. They move it away, it becomes a one-on-one. If you're playing that sweeper game, you can remove that Pokemon from the game, Hawlucha lands, deals damage, and then the follow-up is there if you want to potentially make it that way. And then also that Pokemon's being Skydropped can't use Protect because it's suspended. So it's like, are you going to focus on that Pokemon that's getting Skydropped, or what? And then again, you just have to look at the raw strengths of Pokemon. Pokemon like Mega Salamence, they can just lead with a super duper hyper voice. Or they can also be setting up for physical, so you have to be aware of different things going on. One combo I used to run, and I still like running it here and there, is Azelf. Azelf has Explosion Normal Gym. Tornadus has Tailwind. The idea is I use Tailwind, that's going to be priority. Tornadus I think is the fastest priority Pokemon, or it's really high up there. So there's a very low chance of getting shut down. And then you also just have Azelf, Explode. Hopefully you do a lot of damage, if not knock out both Pokemon. And then you have Tornadus also faint. So that means you have a clean field, but you're going to bring in 2 really strong Pokemon under Tailwind, and hopefully use that to your advantage. My idea was that I have Zapdos with Discharge, and then Garchomp with Earthquake. They don't affect each other, but they can hit both opponents really hard. Choice Specs, Choice Band, and with the speed priority, you know, there's not much your opponent can do. You're going to try to look for reducing counterplay. You're going to try to, like, look for just setting up. That you see a lot of Amoonguss, you can see Breloom, you can see Dark Void Smeargle. If I status your Pokemon, you're going to want to focus the Pokemon that's throwing out all that scary status. You see Smeargle Kangaskhan open, what are you going to do? You want that Smeargle to stop using Dark Void, but you also don't want that Kangaskhan to get a Power Punch and then Sucker Punch the rest of the game away. So that's kind of how the team's going to break down, and really it's just a lot of experimentation. You can bring 2 strong Pokemon, or it's also a very good format for a lot of Pokemon that aren't that usable to shine. That if you can put a lot of support into anything, you can bring up some really crazy Pokemon that really aren't good in singles because it needs extra support. And you'll hear me say that in my strategy guides. That the reason why I can't give a lot of specific advice is because I've mentioned it in a guide, and honestly somewhat forgotten it. That if I say, oh, you can use this Pokemon in doubles really well, try to remember that, because you can use it in doubles really well if you combo it out just right. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hopefully this helps with double battles, at least understanding the way that team building works with it, and I hope you all have a nice day.